It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the St. Francis head women's soccer coach, Coach Sara Butler. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to chat a little bit today.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's soccer?
Yeah, so I don't think for most people, I don't think there's like a linear path. So you just kind of go from point A to B to C, and it's just, easy or straightforward per se. So I should start by saying that passion or soccer's just always been, my kind of passion. It's what I've loved. It's what I've really oriented my life around. Looking back now and, seeing a lot of kids come through the recruiting process, I would say you have a passion for something, try to make it your job so it doesn't feel like a job. That's probably advice I could have used. But my undergraduate degree was actually in nursing. So I went to Messiah now University, and was a nursing undergraduate student. Had a great experience in that program. It was a difficult program, and ended up, after school, I had kind of a part-time coaching job, and then went to another school and coached part-time, and then worked full-time as a nurse, which was its own gift that I could do both of those things together. Yeah, my now husband was like, you're really passionate about coaching. Like, I see you go to, to work as a nurse, and I think you do the job, but you're really excited when the shift's over and you go to practice. And he's like, I don't know, have you ever thought about making that your full-time job? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've thought about it. It's a dream, right? But he's like, pursue it. And I think that concept of really my whole life has been soccer. I mean, since I can remember, I've been involved in the game as a player, and I've loved the relationships that I've developed because of the game. And as a coach, then all of that starts to become your coaching philosophy, right? And so yeah, did I always know? Probably in the back of my mind, it's been my whole life of being about this game and this sport. And then fortunate and lucky enough that I get to do this full time and make it my job is definitely a gift.
What was that experience like going to play college soccer at Messiah?
I mean, it was incredible in a word. That's what I would say. But then there's just so much to say about it. I mean, the first thing is the relationships. I've never experienced anything like that, with the intimacy of relationships that you have there. And then all of the good things, the good fruit that comes from being with incredible people. So you want to work harder, you want to push further. You start to ask hard questions of yourself, and you have teammates challenge you and keep you accountable. And they help you through kind of the growing pains of making yourself better every season. So, I mean, the first thing, the relationships are amazing. Again, like what you experience as a player, I think often informs your philosophy as a coach. So, I'll say very often in the recruiting process, I had teammates at my wedding, in my bridal party. I've been at teammates' weddings, been in teammates' bridal parties, and you're like, those are the type of unique lifelong relationships. So, I mean, in a word, it was incredible. Most of it's because of the relationships, but then you're playing with, I think Coach Fry still is the most winningest coach in NCAA soccer, men's or women's, any division. You can fact check me on that later. But to play with somebody who has that type of knowledge of the game, and has really, I'll say, taken that program from, he started out 0 national championships. Now he has 6. He's a perennial top 25. I mean, what an incredible coach, what an incredible person. And I think that's true of the staff there in general. So I would say it's just an elite experience. So I was really fortunate to have had that, really fortunate to get to play there. it was right in my backyard. So I went to the games as a kid. So it's like, it's, seeing your dream come to life to a certain extent for me personally to be able to play there.
What was that experience as a player, getting to experience things like the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four, and even a runner up in the national championship?
Yeah, I'll say that those reflect a lot of hard work. um, I would say that everybody loves an underdog story. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion. You get to a program where you are that top dog and you know that it's not by accident. I used to work out on Christmas Day because I wanted to go further the next season than I did the last season. And, it starts with my own work rate, my own accountability, my own investment. And if we have a whole team of people doing that, then we go further, right? So to me, I would say that those experiences are reflections of the type of work that the whole team puts in, because you don't get there by accident. So, I love a top dog now because I know that they are there annually because they've worked really hard annually. So I would say like that doesn't just happen by accident. But yeah, I mean, great experiences. We're really fortunate with women's soccer that there's a lot of opportunity, and the game has continued to grow since I played. And so really fortunate for the type of exposure that you get and the type of championship experience you get, even as, a D3 athlete, I think is special and unique. So really fortunate for that.
Coming out of college, what was that experience like first getting started in being an assistant coach and going to Huffington College?
Yeah. So up in Western New York, I was fortunate I got to coach with a former teammate of mine. So to get that as an assistant, I mean, your job as an assistant is whatever the head coach tells you, like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, right? You're filling the role of whatever they need. So yeah, I got to work up at Houghton with an incredible head coach that again I had played with. So the personal relationship, Nikki was a player of the year, incredible goal scorer. I was the young goalkeeper just trying to survive, I would say, right, in my college experience. So she would go out and I'd be like, hey, can you work on this with me? Can you work on that with me? So I think in that sense, very much like in my college experience, someone I looked up to and had good relationships with, and then someone that you get to coach with that person and them. I mean, just kind of the vulnerability and the growth that you can have knowing that person at that level, coaching with them, I think definitely taught me a lot. And she could be candid and really straightforward, like, hey, like just good lessons, right? Like I remember one time after practice being like, oh, I wish that was better. And she's like, yeah, try not to say to someone like, hey, be better. She's like, what does better mean? And I'm like, that's like, what am I, like, what am I doing saying that? But I think the specificity with which she coached, the intentionality with which she viewed the game, and then relationally trying to put all those pieces together. Some of that you don't get until you step into a head coaching role, but I would say she was just a great first person to work with. Well, I guess second person, but really that was more, Houghton was really my first, I'm there every day type of coaching job. So yeah, what a gift to see insight and process from her. And then what an awesome university, or I guess there's still a college at this point, but what an awesome place. I think that school specifically emphasizes obviously faith development and then intimacy of relationship, which is something that fit really well with my experience at Messiah. Something that is a bit of a pattern in terms of where I am now. So no, it was a great first experience, and every part of the journey I'm thankful for, because you learn something from every part of the process.
Of course, after that experience, what was that experience like going to conference college and getting to be the assistant coach?
Yeah, so right after Messiah, I had probably just I had a fifth season. So I played in the fall of 2018. I played after having graduated undergrad. I had a redshirt year, so I played fall of 2018, and then right after that season, I went to Covenant. So Covenant would have been right before Houghton, and I mean it's the first time you get to see like what do coaches talk about, like what does that whole process of behind the scenes planning and So, and then, every perspective is a new one. Like everybody has different things they emphasize as a coach. And so you pick up little things from different staffs. And so that was really my first opportunity getting to do that. And again, at a faith-based school, a school that I think emphasizes relationships and does an incredible job of that. So I was thankful to be a part of it. Probably would have stayed longer if it weren't for sort of the opportunity that developed at Houghton. So I worked with them about 2 or 3 days a week, and a good experience, a good coach who has a lot of success in his conference. And so again, you pick up little tidbits, right, of information or tactical wisdom, or and you help that to help make that inform you and make you better as a coach. So a good experience for sure, a wonderful staff. Thankful for that opportunity.
Going to Eastern Kentucky, what was that experience like, and what did you learn there to help you?
Yeah, so I learned a lot in the best possible way. And the first thing I should start with is, again, working with an incredible staff. I think that can be underestimated at times, is what are the quality of people that you work with. And I have been just unbelievably, I'll say lucky. But just to have worked with just really, really good people who are people, right? So I think in a competitive environment, it's sometimes you can get your priorities, maybe people have different priorities, right? I think that at every place I've been, including EKU, they're people. So we care about players. I think to see that was my first Division I experience. So to see that at the Division I level was comforting to me, truthfully. To see, we can be bringing in some of the best talent in the country, but we're trying to make them really good people. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about recruiting at this level, the type of intentionality and structure that it requires. There's different rules between the divisions, so there were some logistical things. But then there was, I think that that's really the first place I started to truly view the game beyond, I think, my familiarity and where I was comfortable. So I was a goalkeeper. So, I'm talking a lot to defenders and to goalkeepers. And I think, granted, this was my first full-time job too. So I had a full days in the office. So then you start to think about what are the broader tactics of the team. I think I learned a lot. And again, like it stretched me, it challenged me. All coaches have different philosophies, and to see maybe a belief about the game that can be really successful, but that's really different than the system I grew up in was also a gift. And to have someone who's willing to have the conversations. Matt's an incredible person. He's still the head coach there. And I very much view him as a mentor, as a friend, and I still check in with him. Hey, oh my gosh, how did you deal with this? Right? Like he's just such a great resource, constantly brings in incredible people to his staff and to his program. So I learned a lot in the best environment, which is you're stretched, but you're supported, which is something I try to, as a head coach, give to my assistants, right? Can you feel both stretched, that you're growing, that you're getting better, but do you also feel supported? And Matt, in the interview process there, he literally said to me, like, I want you to fail. Like, I want you to try something, have it not work, and learn from it. Which I think that's how you grow. That's the best way to grow. So again, an incredible experience to take with me.
During that time, what was that transition like from, as you said, you were a player playing on Division III level, coached at a
Yeah.
Division III, to then jumping to Eastern Kentucky to be a Division I assistant coach?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of it is just the rules and ways in which the divisions are different. NCAA, Division I, you're a student athlete, but you're an athlete. Like, you're there to play the game. The demands of your time are higher. The preparations from coaches in terms of scout, film, and now, like, it's a full-time job for that player. So I think that was, I'll say, the biggest difference. Obviously scholarship is a major component of it. We don't have athletic scholarship in Division III. So that's a whole other ballpark, right? Now you're saying you get athletic money to come here and to play soccer. That's a whole other thing, right? And the demands of your time as a result of that can be higher. So I would say that's the biggest major difference. I think that part of that is probably you have some elite, right, Division III teams who are going to be competitive with some Division I teams. So I would say that the soccer quality, where I played, and this is a plug for Messiah, they're an elite team. They're a really good team. So I think that the soccer piece it's just seeing different tactical philosophies. I think the coverage of space and ground in the Division I game is generally higher. But I think that the biggest thing I would say, is you can make it even more elite, even more, right, demanding, I think, of student athletes to grow them better, because you are generally playing with higher expectations at the Division I level.
What were some of the things that you were able to accomplish at St. Benedict's as the assistant coach?
Yeah, I think, well, what it comes down to is at Bonaventure we had, I'll say it this way, like as an assistant, your job is to execute the head coach's goals. So I would say not much that I did. We had a really successful season that year, made playoffs. So I'll say that a lot of that credit goes to Steve, who was the head coach at the time. Like, he brought in a really good goalkeeper, a really, I think, prolific goal scorer in terms of Bonaventure's history. And then we had a good core group of girls who wanted to work really hard. You can do a lot with a team that wants to grow, wants to push, wants to work. And, that I know that doesn't happen because I just showed up that season, right? That happens because of the way that head coach, knit that group together up to that point. So it was a good year for that team and within that conference, which is extremely competitive. It's hard to get results anywhere. It's really hard to get results in that conference. And we had, by all accounts, a really successful year. So it was fun, and you get to learn what that feel is like, right? And how that happens. And again, you get different philosophies and ways of training, different concepts. And, Steve knew the game really, really well. And so then it's just adding to your repertoire, and your view as a coach.
For you as a coach, what was that feeling like when you got that first head coaching job and coming to St. Francis to become their head coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling. It's a dream feeling. And then you get there in the first few weeks, you're like, wow, this is here are all of the things that that go into it. And then there's always a period of adjustment. Any job you take, anytime you start a new job, it takes a while to just feel like, okay, where do I go to do that? When I need this, who do I talk to? Right. So there's like the logistics phase, but I mean, what an incredible opportunity. I know I'm fortunate to have gotten the job. I also think I had a lot of experiences that fit, I'll say, who St. Francis is. I mentioned I love the small, intimate community. I love that. And at most of the schools that I've been at, we've had a smaller student population. I'm someone that wants to sit in the office and talk with you. I want to invest in the players. I want to have more conversations than just soccer. I think that St. Francis fit who I am, right? In terms of who this school is. So I think in a lot of ways it's just been it's been growing. It's been a lot of growth and honestly a lot of getting things wrong. But that's what I would tell our athletes, and what I said earlier in the Zoom is, like, very few people just are linear in their trajectory, right? Like, you kind of have ups and downs, and if you're willing to learn from all of them, now the trajectory goes like this, right? And so, like, what a gift. I was, ecstatic and nervous and like, right, kind of both sides of that, excited and so but it's been great. And I think that it comes down to exactly what I would expect of my players, which is you take the opportunities, you prepare for the opportunities, you're ready for the opportunities, right? And then you learn and grow from each experience, whether however you find it, whether you feel like, wow, that was great, or wow, that was really difficult. You now have a choice to become better because of it and to take lessons away from it. So, I mean, how did it feel? It was awesome. At the time I was 25, and my assistant was 23. So I joked we were like the youngest, probably Division I coaches, or at least for women's soccer at the time. But it's been a gift. And I'm still really thankful for it, because it's made me who I am, right? And grown me into the coach that I am.
As a head coach, what has that experience been like? Obviously, building the coaching staff around you and the players
Mm.
around you.
Yeah, I think each season gives you different lessons. I think I've found, you know, that authenticity is really important. You have to be who you are. And I think that I express that to the players. Like, you need to be who you are. Don't mute yourself. Like, express how you're feeling. Be authentic in your pursuit of what you want. And I think what that also is it's honest communication. And I think I've gotten better and better. There've certainly been things as a head coach I've fumbled, like, no doubt, right? But the honesty, I think, to say to a player, hey, listen, I apologize, right? Like, I said this and I don't want you to interpret it this way, or I do that and I act, I think, authentically and honestly because I want my players to be the same way. You're not going to have a perfect, right, experience. You're not going to have when you get to the workforce, and everyone's not going to treat you fairly, right? But what you can always do is treat people with respect, have honest conversations, and then you find your tribe, which I would say is like the people that you know are going to be honest with you and hold you accountable. Like, that's what you want in life. And so I think, I've learned over the last few years, definitely how to communicate better. I've learned I can't over communicate. And I've tried to take intentional steps. I mean, in terms of, I've been fortunate, I've had two assistants, just got my second, and they've both been phenomenal people first. That matters, right? If I'm going to talk to the girls about caring for each other, respecting each other, I need to be demonstrating that to them as a staff, that we care about them. So I've been fortunate in that regard to just have great people first, and then people who are knowledgeable about the game. And I say, when it's two soccer staff members, you have to bring an opinion every day because it makes us better. So if I'm the only one with an opinion, it's a problem, right? And if they're the only person with an opinion as an assistant, it's a problem because we're not sharpening each other. We sharpen each other in the office as a staff, and then we go out and we sharpen the team together. So, and then I think the areas that you need to grow in, you have to invest and spend the additional time growing in them, right? Like, I want to talk to coaches and ask them, hey, how do you train this, right? Or, oh, how have you managed this issue? Has this happened to you? What's some helpful advice? So I think that's been part of it. And then we just brought in this year like a head of leadership development. And that's been awesome because sometimes as a coach, you're running a session and you're thinking about coaching points and you're thinking about changes. And then you look at somebody and you're like, oh, she seems a little off today. I wonder if she, and then, so you're thinking about so many things. And so even having him on staff now, it helps me care for them better, helps me care for the team better beyond soccer, because the reality is when I'm at practice, I'm in one zone. And I'm thinking about the game and how does this apply and what angle does she need to press from? What does she need to be aware of on the weak side? And so then to have somebody who, I think, both in our assistant and then in this like leadership position, who's like, hey, did you notice her today? You should check in with her. I'm like, that I think helps me coach them and care for them at a better level. So that's been a little bit of the last, I guess that's more recent developments, but at least the last few years here.
What was that feeling like for you as a head coach stepping onto that soccer field for the first time?
I mean, you find out a lot about yourself. I mean, I remember, I'll never forget the first win, right? So I'll never forget. It's just, I look at some coaches who have some more experience and I'm like, man, how do you take it? Right? Like, and that's something I think even fans love about athletics, right? Like, you can get so emotionally invested and involved, and then you're standing there feeling responsible for that result. Like, it adds something, right? It does. And so, standing on the sidelines, I'm like, okay, man, it's a great feeling. It's also, at times you're like, okay, like, how are we going to solve this problem? But I think it's exciting. I say that's the fun part of the game, is now I get to be a tactician and now we get to play chess a little bit, right? How do we resolve this? And did I put in the legwork at practice and teaching certain concepts and principles so that when in a game I say, hey, here's the solution, are they ready to apply it? And I think I've had good examples and bad examples of that, and again, it all makes you better. So, I think that it's fun. It's fun when the best part, I think, is when you see a kid figure it out, right? Like you're training something or they're working for something and then they score the goal or they make the save or they have the tackle that you just talk to them about in the office, or like that I think is the one of the best feelings. I mean, when they figure it out in life, you're also like, that's probably the most impactful piece. But it is awesome to teach somebody, to walk alongside them and to see them have their moment. Like I can think of, a moment with a player this year. She scored a goal. And I mean, we literally had to keep the team on the sideline because everybody was so excited. Me too. I showed her the film after the game and you could see our sideline. And I said, I want you to see this reaction. And it's me I'm putting both arms in the air and our whole bench is, freaking out and they run onto the field and they shouldn't have done that. But that's such a good moment. You have a kid that's trying to figure it out and she just has that happen to her. And that's why you've got to love athletics and like there's so much, it's so personal. There's a storyline to that person. So, oh my gosh, what a great feeling as a coach. That's got to be the highest moment, right? When they figure it out in life on the field and you get to be there and see it. What a gift.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for St. Francis women's soccer?
Yeah, I think culture is probably the hardest part because it's so subjective. There's not like I don't know if you could just make a checklist and say, oh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done, and then boom, it just works, right? A lot of it is truthfully trial and error with always the thought process of how does this benefit the team? Is this the best decision for the team? But then again, it's subjective because a team is what, 28 to 32 individuals, and they're all going to have different reactions. I think that it's been, I'll say this, the girls here have always been, regardless of, hey, do they like me? Do they like the decisions that I make? They've always been, I think, a team that has each other's backs. Like they're relationally close. And I'll say that hasn't needed a ton of work. Like they love each other. Our school did a little dance off the other night, and the seniors who have no stake in the game, like, right, they're done playing soccer here. They came out to the dance off and they were dancing with our team. Like that's a team caring about a team, right? That's a team being friends. It's a team being, that's what this environment should produce. And so I mean, I think they've always had that, always. And as a coach, you get to step in that environment and you're like, I don't really have to solve you guys being friends. You are that. You care about each other. I think St. Francis draws the type of person who cares about relationships because it is a small community. You're going to come to our campus and you're going to be like, okay, wow, I have to love building relationships. I have to love connecting with these people. You can't come in here and hide. Like it's an intimate community. So I think in that capacity, I'll say this, like there's always, I think, cultural things to address. I think trying to find this balance of, and this is a borrowed philosophy, but can we be both, fiercely competitive and sharpen each other on the field and have these brilliant and beautiful and intimate relationships? You're asking an 18 to 22-year-old kid to live in tension. That's what you're asking, right? I'm asking you to go onto the field and tackle her and win the ball and score and celebrate and be excited about that. And then I'm asking you at the end of practice to put your arm around that player, right? And be friends with her. Like that's a big ask. And I think that, trying to figure all of those pieces out, it is learning day by day by day. I think this is a great place to coach. I think it's a great place for relationships to develop. And when that fits, when the school's identity fits who you are as a coach, now it's fun to sell because you're like, I love this. And I hope that when kids come to visit, that's what they feel like, wow, this coach loves what she's doing here. She loves this team. And like I said, regardless, player has a relationship where, I think as a head coach, playing time is is a part of our job. We've got to define that. And so I think sometimes that makes it harder. Again, I'm asking you to live in a little bit of tension and trust. I'm making what I feel and what our staff feels is the best decision for the team. So I think that, I mean, that's such a lengthy answer, but the culture here, I think teammate to teammate has been great. And now what I want is, can we have both? Can we win a ton of soccer games? And I know it's possible here. Can we win and have this culture of deep care for each other? So that would be something that I hope I can bring here a little bit more. And I'm looking at myself. I want to win more. I want to win more than I did the past 2 seasons. So
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
yeah, so the NEC is just ever changing. So we've got new additions, you know, I won't say old faces, we'll say familiar faces, right? And I think that it's interesting, you know, I think we play non-conference to prepare us for conference play. And we're lucky in that because, you know, if you win the NEC, which I think is possible for us, you get an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. So we're using our non-conference games to prepare us, to sharpen us, to give players experience, to, you know, let them get familiarity with their position. And then you use the, you know, the conference slate. You're like, hey, it's game on. It's do or die. We're getting into the NCAA tournament by beating these teams. So, but you know, I think a conference that is really competitive and is competitive every year. And one of the things you have to love is anybody can win it. And so it makes every game a big game, right? And we have, like I said, some teams leaving, some new teams entering this season. So it'll be just another whirlwind and exciting and competitive season, I'm sure, this fall.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams come to your home facility versus going away?
My first year, I think I'm trying to remember this. I think we lost one home game my first year. Otherwise, we tied or won, right? So I think that playing at St. Francis, a little bit of elevation, right? So you've got that. I think we have one of the bigger fields in the conference. We used to be a geographical outlier. So now you're traveling 8 hours to play us. I think that it's difficult to play here because of where we are. And I think that you know, you add all those factors and then I haven't even talked about weather, which if you're a coach in our conference, I think one of the first things they always say is related to the weather when they get here. My first spring, I think we experienced all 4 seasons in one game. And I went into the locker room before the game and I said, hey, I don't know what to tell you to wear out there. It is raining, it is hot, it is snowing, be ready, right? And we get out and that was the game. It's like at one point there's zero visibility. You know, I learned what a snow squall was here. So there's zero visibility. And then the next it's beaming because the sun's out. And then the next it's raining. So I think that that makes it challenging. And then I'm like, anytime you play somebody at home, then there's that extra lift of like, this is our home field. Like we don't lose here. We don't roll over here. Like we beat people up, right? When they come to play us here. So I think there's that atmosphere of it. And so I think we have a lot of natural advantage in the structure of our conference and, you know, our field, our location, all of those things. And then, you know, because of who we are, there's a game we played this season. We actually ended up losing at home, so maybe I shouldn't reference it, but I was so proud of our team. Like, just you look at a team that puts everything, like heart, energy, like they're just gritty, and they do that for 90 minutes, and they've given their best effort. I'm never going to be disappointed in that team. Like I was so proud of them. Like that's what every time you play us, home or away, we should look like that. And I told them that, I'm like, that's the DNA of SFU. You put on our jersey, that's it, every single time, and we're gonna go places, right? So, but yeah, that's my insight into the home environment here.
Of course, what does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Wow. So I say wow because it's a lot, right? Like you're at that point cross analyzing them to the current roster to the vision you have for your team, which is in some ways always evolving. Because so, our vision is like, we want to be NEC champions, right? Like back to back to back to back. We want to be the team people hate to play because we're going to win, right? Like what that looks like each year changes because your personnel and your roster changes each year. So when you look at, prospective student athletes, you're thinking, I want somebody who helps us accomplish that vision. A huge part, you're a soccer player. That's a huge part, right? Like, do you feel the tactical and technical proficiencies that we define for the different positions on the field? That's part of it. Absolutely. That's a huge part of it. The intangibles, that is just as important. Like, who are you when you're losing? How do you work to get the ball back? What happens when you lose the ball? Like, how are you speaking to your teammates? How are you speaking to your coach? Right? All of those things are under a constant assessment because it's, do you fit who we are? So the short answer to that is there's a lot that we look at and think about. I think getting kids to campus is important because, again, you're going to walk on campus. We're in a rural community. We can't hide it. We literally can't. So you're going to get here and you're going to be like, wow, I love the girls. I love the way they invest in me. I love the campus. I love it. Right. Or you're going to get here and be like, I love the girls. I'm going to say everybody says that when they come here. I'll say that. I love the girls. Right. But we are in a rural location. So if you want to be by a city and you want to go out and right, like, explore a city, this probably isn't the best fit for you, and that's okay, right? But it is making sure that, regardless of the soccer piece, you have to want to be here. That's going to help you compete at a higher level.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that St. Francis uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting on for the last time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'll say this, like, your freshmen come in, your first year players come in, and you're like, wow, this year is going to be a lot. We're not a spring sport or a winter sport. Like, you get here and you're in it. Like the first day, what I'll always talk about is defending. So you know what that first day is? The intensity of that first session is high. So like the traditional first day is, hey, you've got fitness test, you've got defending, and welcome to college soccer, like welcome to Division I. So and then they've got to figure all these things out. Like, these kids are coming here from being all state, all conference, all right, like they're the best where they came from to play here. And so then you bring them in and you put them in this pot with all of these really competitive people who are going to knock you over at practice, not to be mean, but because we're working on defending and tackling and going at it. And then they've got to navigate all of that. And then, by the way, like, you are also a student, you are also a human being dealing with everything else that's going on. So freshmen put on that kit for the first time. It's probably promo day, so they're excited and happy. But then, like, you're like, this kid is going to have to work and figure some things out, and you know that as a coach. And then for seniors, like, for our seniors, I want their experience to be the best possible one. And I mean that competitively. I mean that I want my seniors to play. I really, really do. But that's not so much because you're a senior, but I want that storyline for you. I want you to go from being a freshman who's figuring out to a sophomore, to a junior, to a senior. And you get that, like, story, like perfect storyline, which is, I went from here and now I'm a starter. And now I'm the one that, on corners as a center back, they look at me and they say, I'm going to score, or I'm the forward that puts the ball in the back of the net. I want that for our seniors, right? But that's directly a result of what did they do the last 3 years to get them to this place? How did they work, right? So you want to give them that season. I mean, I write speeches for all of my seniors every year and, like, try to emphasize who they are as a person more than anything else, right? Like, hey, like, this is something that I enjoy about who you are. Give them a chance to give advice to the team. Like, I think that in a team, you have everybody working for each other. I think that seniors have invested the most amount of time into a program, the most amount of energy. And so you want to give them the best possible gift you can, because this team won't exist again. Soccer at this level or in this way won't exist for them again. Like, let's make it the best possible year and season for them. So kind of different ends of the spectrum. And then you got to think seniors are starting to navigate, like, okay, who am I? Because soccer has been, as it has been for me, and I couldn't let it go. And now I'm coaching, right? Like, soccer has been, oh, you're Sara, the soccer player, right? Like, now I'm Sara, the soccer coach. So it is such a big part of who you are, and navigating that. I mean, I want to support that however I can. But it is such a unique place to be in life because you don't get these moments back, right?
As a soccer coach, what is it like seeing those seniors put on that last St. Francis uniform for the last time, but their first professional jersey, whether it's the NWSL or US Women's National jersey?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a couple players who are in camps, like youth national team camps. That's awesome, right? Like, I mean, it's fun to see as a coach a player perform at a level you never did. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this player is brilliant, right? Like, that's that I think is really fun. And we had a player in a national team camp for her country, and I said, when she told me, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know all about it. I want to tell me about it. How is it? How are what are the training sessions like? Maybe she doesn't want me to ask that many questions, but I think and I told her, I said, this is the result of the work that you put in when I wasn't around, right? Like, to be someone performing and competing at that level, like, obviously there's like a base level of talent, but hard work, right? Like I'd come up to the field to set something for practice, or pump soccer balls, and she'd be up here doing sprints. She'd be up here like getting extra touches on the ball. You're like, you earned that. Like, I wish I could say that I'm the genius but I can't. Like, you earned this. So I mean, what a joy and what a gift to me. So probably to them too, but I love seeing it, right? Like, I love seeing people just exceed um, and compete at such an elite level. I mean, it's entirely, for the most part, because of who they are and how they've worked. And then you get to reintroduce a player like that into your roster with these different experiences and perspectives at a high level, and it makes you better. So, like, it's fun, right? Like, it's fun, I think, to have that experience. We have a few players that are kind of in and out, especially kind of with our incoming class, that are in and out of youth team national pools, or they're competing at these like semi-professional environments over the summer. Like, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome for sure.
What are some of your future plans for the St. Francis women's soccer program moving forward?
Win NECs, win an NCAA, right? Like, all of these fun things. But I think I'll say, like, I'll go back to the beginning and talking about Messiah and playing, I think the lowest season or lowest finish we had was Sweet 16. Like, that doesn't happen by accident. And you just know the amount of work and investment that, yes, happens as a coach, but has to happen as a team. And so you're like, I want to get us there, where we're like making these runs that make us proud, make our school proud, but ultimately is creating these incredible people, because most of the players here won't go on to play professionally. So what's the goal? Like, why am I, right? Like, you play soccer for the incredible experience, for the love for the sport, but also I want to be helping to foster and create better people. I mean, I love that I can say every member of our staff has that shared vision and goal. Like, we want you to come here, play here, use the disciplines of sport, right? Like, investment. What's the quality of your investment, right? Your time investment. How do you self-reflect? How do you take criticism? How do you work through these tensions that I've talked about? And then how do you do that in a game, and you're going to be able to do it well in life. So you think, so more than anything, that's the impact I want. I do think you get those little disciplines and you're winning soccer games, because that's what it takes to be really successful. A team that's willing to do all of the little things really, really well. And I say coaching is a game of ideals, because I can say and think whatever I want about the game, And then we get to a game and you know what? The scout is not the formation they're playing, which, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like, who's going to impose their will on the game? Who's going to put their heart and their body on the line to make it happen, right? So more than anything, I think then you start winning games. And so I'm excited for that because I think this team is taking the right steps to become that, and they choose that every day.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college soccer?
Be a sponge, like learn everything you can. Everything is a learning opportunity. Invest in each other. You're going to walk through 4 years with this class. You're going to walk through 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, right, with the classes above you. Like take those opportunities to learn, because if you do and you do that intentionally, you're going to become a much better leader over the course of 4 years. I would say choose to be positive is an important part of that. And I talked to the girls about this spring. I'm like, that doesn't mean like be fake and be like unrealistically optimistic, but it means like, hey, life isn't always going to be great. The game's not always going to be going the way you want it to. But in that moment, you got to go like, let's go. Come on. Like we can get it done. We can make it happen. We can, right? And so I would say choose to be positive. And then one of my teammates, when I played her senior speech, so kind of her speech of like, you know, I'm done playing, I'm moving on. So her advice to the team was, you can't cheat hard work. And I do think that there are some players, right? You could get into the work rate versus talent debate. I won't do that. But I will say you can't cheat who you become when you work hard. Absolutely. So I would say those three things, and have the conversation. That's a big one. It takes a while as a coach to, some people it's really easy, and some people they need to kind of, you know, feel you out and learn who you are. I tell my players, like, don't assume how I'm feeling. Come into the office, expect honesty, right? And then we can work through things.
What advice would you give those players looking to play professional soccer, whether it's NWSL or the U.S. national team?
Wow. I would say this. It takes an incredibly talented player to play at that level. And I think you see that with national team selections. Like no matter what roster they put together, at least for the US national team, and I'll just speak to that because I'm more familiar. Like no matter what roster you put together, you're like, yeah, she's good. Right? Like so it's an incredibly small amount of people who get to play at that level. And you know, like I love watching the videos that shows those players training. Because yes, they're incredibly skilled. They're incredibly, you know, gifted, and they've worked on that. But I'll tell you what, like at that level, like you don't have time to not work hard. You don't. There's just no way. And so then you're like, it's this combination and blend of things. You've got to be willing to put in the work for it. You got to understand like these people playing at this level are competing and training like for their paycheck, for their family. So now your heart is really in it at that point. So you know, I think that a lot of it is going to take an incredible amount of work, and you've got to make a decision that every day you work with consistent energy, consistent effort, intentionality in your touches, and there's never a day where you should feel comfortable, because you're not going to be gifted that in a pro environment. Like, oh, this is easy. Today's easy, right? Like that's there, you know, the amount of staff and energy that gets invested into you. If you waste that, you're done, right? And it's not to say people don't care about you. It's just, it is a different environment. Yeah, I mean, work really hard. I would say the same, be a sponge, like learn as much as you can from the best. And, you know, we were talking before, you know, you hit record about, hey, like you reach out and you say like, hey, will this coach get interviewed by me? Will they have a conversation with me? Like I would say the same thing to like players who are seeking to play at elite levels, like talk to elite players, right? Like you never know. You literally never know if someone will be willing to have that conversation and give you some guidance.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to get started in coaching and being head coaches and running their own program?
Yeah, I mean, how how many times can I say be a sponge, right? Like seriously learn as much as you can. Be willing to like be wrong and be humbled. and be willing to do that by asking somebody that you really respect, like, what do you think about this? And then have them just rip it apart. So then I'll balance that with, what I said about my coach at EKU, who's like, I want to see you fail, but you also need to feel supported, right? So that's a piece of it. Like, don't, right, develop some relationships and have some conversations. Generally speaking, that the coaching community wants to see more high quality coaches, and so they're going to support players. So I think that take every opportunity you can to be uncomfortable, to learn, and I think that at times you're going to feel really good about, oh wow, like they agreed with me, that's a great first moment, right? And then, oh wow, can you hear me?
Yeah, you went out for a second. But now your camera's off. No, sorry, what advice would you have those coaches that are looking to become head coaches one day and build their own program?
Yeah, so be a sponge, right? Learn as much as you possibly can. Ask good coaches, people you respect, right? You want that balance of people who want to support you but also want to stretch you and grow you. So I think that, being willing to ask questions of those that are kind of in your organic sphere, and then you can start to maybe, right, like go out and ask a couple people at different events, recruiting events, or like a melting pot of every potential coach at every potential level. And if you see they have a minute in between a game, just say, hey, wondering if I could pick your brain on something. If they say no, they say no, right? Like, I think that coaches generally want to see the coaching community grow and the knowledge of the game grow. So if you're someone with a good heart, cares for people, cares for the game, I think you'd be generally surprised by people's willingness to have the conversation and to see you in the game.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the St. Francis Women's Soccer Program?
So I'm going to be honest, I personally have like no social media. I am I'll say this, you can find all of our social media accounts as a team, all of that on our website. But I'll say, and I think it's a great tool to connect with recruits, to share, information about who we are, what we value, what we believe in. If you want to know that about me, you can talk to me, and you can have some conversations, right? I'm pretty open to just getting to know people, but I should probably say I'm not the best example of maybe using personal social media. Maybe I just get too distracted, but no, I think if people ever want to, connect with me, I'm going to sound so old. I'm not 30. Email me, email me, text me, all that information's available. I'm so sorry that that's my actual answer. You can maybe DM our team account, and that'll find its way to me. That's like the oldest thing I've ever said. But it's the truth, right? Like, connect with me at a real and authentic level personally, and we can have some conversations that way.
Thank you again, Coach Sara Butler, for your interview, and best luck in your future with St. Francis as the head women's soccer coach.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Sara Butler, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.